Welcome to another episode of Teen Gen Talks, hosted by me, Melissa.
And me, Desiree.
Where the goal is to empower the youth of Glendale and connect youth to community resources, individuals, and organizations through interviews and discussions.
And today we are joined by two special guests, Celine and Gia. They are the co-founders of the future-focused agency 98. All born in the year 1998, hence the name, co-founders Celine and Gia, along with Bryant Lin, started 98 shortly after graduating from Loyola Marymount University in May 2020. 98 creates collaborative relationships between Gen Zs and brands, driving our generation's voice to the forefront of digital marketing. As a company rooted in innovation, impact, diversity, and community, 98 strives to create a new generation of respectable yet resonant brands that work for consumers first. Their small but mighty team is driven by the hope of Gen Z and is focused on bringing Gen Z digital expertise to every brand that needs it. Today, 98 works with clients across all industries, including PepsiCo, Fabletics, Frank, and IMVU, finding new ways to foster authentic conversations between brands and Gen Z.
Don't forget to follow us on our social, on Instagram and Facebook at MyGlendaleLAC. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and we post videos every Friday at 4:30 p.m. Thank you, Celine and Gia, for taking the time out of your day to talk with us. We have a lot to discuss.
Awesome. We're so excited to be here.
So to start off the interview, I want to take it back to when you were at Loyola Marymount University. How did the friendship between, all of you guys begin and form?
Celine and I's friendship began literally the first day of college, first day of orientation. We had both never even stepped foot at LMU until that very first day. And we were put into the same orientation group and met through, I think, a round of speed dating or some form of icebreaker. We instantly became friends. We ended up living in the same dorm in freshman year. We were both majoring in marketing, so we had similar classes, and we both ended up joining a specialized 2-year advertising program at LMU called the M School. So we definitely developed a friendship very, very early on, and kind of leaned on each other throughout the craziness of college. We ended up having similar paths because of our major and because of the program. So really had similar experiences there within advertising. And then from there kind of ended up as colleagues and coworkers and fellow entrepreneurs. So it's been a wild, how many years has it been, Celine? 6 years? 7 years?
6, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
During the motivation and inspiration that you guys have had, how did you create your own agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think any of us who are the part of the co-founding 6 really had the idea that we wanted to start a company right then and there. For perspective, we actually sort of had this idea. We graduated May 2020 during COVID, the heart of COVID. People were getting jobs taken away, offers rescinded, etc. It was such a tough job market. And I don't think any of us were really looking forward to graduating at that point without hope in sight. One of our professors sent an email, was like, "Oh, can't find a job, start your own agency." And so I think that was kind of the catalyst to this idea. So when the 6 of us joined together to start 98, none of us really had the entrepreneurial background or this is what we've been dreaming of for all of college. We wanted to start this. It was more of a this could be an interesting opportunity in a time where there isn't much opportunity elsewhere. And so that kind of ran with it. We ran with it, and then we were just motivated because we had a really exciting first pitch opportunity with a mentor, and that just really built momentum there.
And touching back upon friendship wise, how did you both know that, okay, this is a group of people I could trust and go beyond and create a business, because sometimes you don't want to mix friendship and business. But yeah, what's your, I guess, take on that?
In all honesty, we didn't know if that group was going to be like the best group to start a business with. We kind of all just dove in head first. I think the six of us had different relationships with one another. Some of us were closer than others. We were never a group of six before starting 98. Like that group was never its own thing before 98. But we had all been a part of that 2-year program called the M School. And so we've kind of known each other for 2 years, maybe have worked with one another lightly for school projects, but have never had to work on something this big, like starting a business together. So we didn't know if it was going to work out. And 2 years later, from 6, we're down to 3. So through the years, we kind of realized like startup isn't for everyone, entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. And some of the founders realized that and kind of stepped away from 98. So yeah, having to navigate kind of like the relationship between us as friends and then fellow classmates and then coworkers and then co-founders and business partners was definitely interesting.
Going off a little bit about that, but like, like for example, if you guys disagree on a problem, how do you guys work it out?
Yeah, I feel like that's always a challenge. Like whether you're friends or not friends, that's always a struggle. I think like when we were 6, there was a lot of voices at the table. And we tried our best to hear everyone out, but at some point, like that number does feel a little large. And it was an even number. So it wasn't even like a vote system that could really like, make it happen. So I think the odd numbers were favorable. But I think in general, like even now down to 3, like we still have disagreements as, owners. I think it's just about listening to what other people have to say. And then there are points where majority does win, that, like we have to make decisions and they have to come down to that. But that being said, I think we take the time to listen to everyone, and that has swayed decisions. Most recently, it has swayed a very big decision. So I think that's really how we go about it. It's just talking, listening, and then putting it to a vote.
For both of you on the business side of it all, what was the hardest part you all had to face when creating 98?
I think one of the hardest parts was just gaining credibility. It doesn't help that we were like 21 with no entrepreneurial experience when we started this. We were very lucky that LMU was very supportive of our venture, and people in the LMU community were eager to support and, trust us instantly. But beyond the LMU bubble, it was definitely really challenging to win new business, get new clients, etc. Yeah, I think that was kind of the biggest struggle, was to prove ourselves that we weren't just quote kids. We had talent. We knew what we were doing, even though we may not always know we're the experts in it. And then just like wanting to offer competitive rates, but without, overworking ourselves or undercutting our roles and what we do.
So in the beginning, how did you all like divide your work? And like, if you could also tell us how each of your roles are in the company.
So in the very, very beginning, before 98 was even called 98, Celine mentioned this earlier, we had our first pitch as a group of 6. And it was from our professor who connected us. We were pitching to a new yogurt brand and literally to the ex-CEO of Sabra. So it was a really, really big deal. We had maybe like 1 week or less to pull that together. So it was the first time that we had ever worked together as a team, and we were kind of just thrown into it. So we saw where people, shined through their leadership skills or their creative skills or their research skills. And from there, we could kind of tell what people's strengths and weaknesses are and what lanes they could take. But there was a lot of workshopping, I think, in the beginning among the 6 co-founders. We did a whole session where, everyone wrote down what they wanted to do, what they're skilled at doing, and what they like doing within the team. And we did that for everyone as well. So you do it for yourself, and you do it for like how well you think the other people are doing as well. And then you kind of marry the two concepts to find your team dynamic. It's interesting too, because, as people leave the company and as we hire new people, the dynamics shift and we have to kind of switch the hats around based on the new strengths and weaknesses of the team. So just because we pick one lane at one point in time doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be forever. We are super like malleable and flexible as a startup and as a small company. In terms of our current roles, so beyond being a co-founder at 98, I am the Chief Strategy Officer, which sounds super fancy, but basically I lead client and Gen Z acquisition efforts. So doing new business pitches, really just fueling our lead generation just so that we can stay profitable as a company. And client side, I do account management, strategy, and influencer management.
On my end, co-founder as well. CEO is the official title, kind of scary even to me, but I pretty much lead all operations. So dealing with HR, payroll, planning events, keeping people happy is what I like to call it, being people's moms. And then also the financial aspect. So light bookkeeping, budgeting, forecasting, all of that fun stuff. And then on the client side, I also lead projects and accounts. So really being that liaison for communication, as well as most recently, influencer marketing management.
And Celine, you touched upon this a little bit about, gaining that credibility, but how did you all brand yourself and 98 to help people know about the agency? Gia, if you want to start.
So I guess it's all about the narrative that you put out for yourself that will make you stand out. So in the beginning, back in 2020, our narrative was, pandemic born company started by like recent college graduates. So we were really tapping into we began in COVID. We started as entrepreneurs as like literally college graduates, and to kind of show, I guess, the entrepreneurial spirit of Gen Z and how we're not afraid to do things differently. But a few years down the line, sort of like 2021, everyone's kind of tired of hearing the pandemic story because everybody's just tired of the pandemic in general. And so, we couldn't always be that pandemic recent college graduate founded company. So we kind of had to pivot not only our story, but our agency and offerings as a whole. So we went from being a content creation agency to being more of a Gen Z consultancy and more about our generational insights and generational movements and kind of fueling the mission of Gen Z within the brand marketing and advertising world. So that's kind of, I think, the important part is knowing how to pivot, not just your story, but even like who you are as an agency and what you're offering and making sure that you deliver on that. So because we are more of that Gen Z consulting kind of story right now, we had to, or as a part of the pivot, we developed what we call the Koi Pond. And it's basically a network or a community of around 300 Gen Zs right now. And that's who we tap into for kind of insights beyond our own personal experiences as an agency. So we realized that, it's not enough to claim ourselves as Gen Z experts just because we ourselves are Gen Z. Our generation is so diverse, probably the most diverse generation in history. So we created the Koi Pond to better represent our generation because we couldn't accurately do that just alone ourselves.
Okay, so for any teen or young adult listening, what advice would you give them on branding yourself?
Yeah, I think we all really had to learn this one along the way. I would say an advice is to just be confident and explore who you are. None of us got to our C-suite titles or even our roles by just sticking in one lane. It was an explorative moment for us to be like, what am I actually good at? Like, what do I value in life? Do my values and my career roles like merge and all of that? So I think that's like really important. If you don't know yourself, how would other people know you? So I think like that's really one key factor on starting to brand yourself. Is just figuring out who you want to be personally, professionally. Do they overlap at all? And what that might look like to the public.
And during this whole journey, what is something each of you have learned throughout this whole process that has stuck with you? Celine, if you want to start.
Oh, that's a tough one. I feel like I've learned a lot on this journey. My biggest takeaway, I think, just from the last 2 years is that you can plan life, but at some point, like life will just go. And it's whether you want to go on that ride or not. So some context, I studied dance in college and I wanted to dance since I was a little girl, and like this was just completely not in my path at all, but I took this opportunity and ran with it, and I feel like I've learned a lot. There's a lot of growth, one as a business leader, two as like just a general, Gen Z leader, and then three of myself. So I think that's just kind of like something I've learned, is that life will throw a bunch of different things at you. You can see them as obstacles, or you can see them as an opportunity to just sort of, change things up, try something new, and you'll never know what you get out of it. And I think it's so fun to get to work with young people every day.
I think for me, it's that you can literally do whatever you want to do. And I know that sounds like easier said than done, but it's true. Like Celine said, people say that you have to do things a certain way, finish high school, go to college, finish college, get an internship, finish your internship, get a job, and then get promoted in your job and, climb the ladder. And that's kind of like the general path. But I think a lot of Gen Zs are seeing this as well, as that it's never linear, and you can literally take ownership of what you want that path to be, while still being flexible to what life throws at you, like what Celine was saying. So, but yeah, you can definitely, it is in your power to define what your career and future looks like.
What does a typical day look like for you both working at 98?
It's always different. Every day, every week, we have some busier weeks, some more chill weeks, but we are a remote company. So we do a lot of Zooms with our team to get our collaborative brainstorms in. But we balance that with, just blocks of personal work time. Celine and I actually don't live in LA most of the year. So personally, I live in Manila, Philippines, 2/3 of the year, and I'm in LA the other third, just to be in person with the team. So yeah, when I'm in Manila, I work from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then I have the whole afternoon to do whatever I want. Usually it's golf. So yeah, it's a mixture of like client work, internal 98 work, Zoom meetings, but also personal work time. And we kind of work from everywhere because we are remote.
And 98 has worked with clients like PepsiCo, Fabletics, and Paul Frank, to name a few. What does that process look like when a client reaches out to you, or you reaching out to a client?
This is definitely my forte. So normally when a client reaches out to us, we do an introductory call just to get to know them better. What are they looking for? What are their marketing needs? Is this a fit basically between 98 and the potential client? Once we gather all that information, we typically bring it to the team. So here's this company, here's what they need, here are their competitors, here's some things that they want to see from us. We do a lot of, in-depth research to understand the, industry that they're in. So their consumers, their competitors, like what are they doing, what's happening in culture. And then we use that to kind of develop ideas and brainstorm together on what strategies we want to create for them. From there, we create a pitch deck and basically make all of our ideas look really pretty. Then we set up that formal pitch with a client. It's usually an hour long over Zoom. They ask questions, they tell us what they liked or didn't like from the pitch. And then from there, it's more of the legal talk. So you formulate contracts, you talk money, then you get it signed. It's a slightly different process for each client, and it takes anywhere between like a month to like 6 months sometimes. So it's in marketing and advertising and a service like ours, it's really hard to predict. But that's kind of what it looks like to win a client.
So has there been a time when you didn't take on a client because it just didn't feel right or it didn't align with 98's mission?
Yes, I think, there was a point or in the first year, you are trying to make money, you're hustling, you were working for much lower pay than you expected and all of that. And I think there was a pivotal moment at 98 where we were like, why are we working with some of the people we do? Like, this doesn't feel right. We don't ever go into a client conversation feeling happy or like we're nervous, we're scared. And that really shouldn't be the relationship you want with your clients. But it was a moment of survival type of thing. So I think recently we've been a little bit more selective of who we work with. There are certain people or certain industries that we're like, we're not even going to venture in there. We've had conversations about it internally. We've made decisions that that's just not something that we would cross the line for. And yeah, so I think like we are more conscious about who we work for, who we work with, and at any point in like a new biz process, like if it doesn't feel right to one of us, we'll definitely have a conversation about it before moving forward.
And what is something that each of you do that helps you maintain motivation to create and help a client? And if you guys have ever experienced burnout, what have you done to like kind of get out of that?
I would say like on this team, I have probably the least design skills, so I'm not great for the content creation industry. That being said, like my creative outlet has always been dance and like fitness and all of that stuff. So that really helps me clear my mind. I was literally thinking about it this week. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so tired. And someone pointed out, oh, you haven't like gone to like a workout class this week. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And that's like it. That's when like the rhythm is off. So I think finding something that helps you stay focused, something that you enjoy that is completely separate from work has been really, really helpful for me personally. And yeah, like that little reminder that like I didn't dance or go to a workout class this week. I was like, yeah, that's really why I feel so funky and off. And I also just like those activities that don't involve screen time. So whatever you can do to not be on a screen again is my way of staying sane.
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in the past 2 years as like an entrepreneur is that it's okay to not be giving it 150% every single day. I think in the beginning, it's like hustle, hustle, hustle. And we were working literally through the night. And that literally like led to such bad burnout personally for me. I think around April, May last year, like that was one of the worst burnouts I've ever felt. And this is something that the team always tells me, like, it's okay to slow down. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure as an entrepreneur to grow and scale and like become successful overnight. And that's just not going to happen. And that's okay. Like slow growth is still growth. So yeah, just being okay and having a mindset that like it's okay to rest and not give it 150% every single day and give yourself room to breathe, I think is what helps me stay motivated. When it comes to burnout, I think similar to what Celine said, just finding creative outlets beyond work, and creativity can literally mean like so many different things. So it doesn't necessarily mean having to design something, like even just like taking a pottery class or taking a dance class or going to the beach. Just finding that creative energy somewhere else beyond the screen, I think is super important.
And this year, 98 won the Web Excellence Award. Can you talk about the IMVU fashion TikTok campaign that 98 did a little bit?
Yeah, that was one of the most fun campaigns that we've done as an agency. I led that account and project. So basically, IMVU is a social metaverse app. So think like Facebook meets Sims. You have your own avatar and you kind of meet people and there are different chat rooms. And they were really popular, I want to say in like 2008, but we're kind of struggling to become relevant in like today's day and age. And their main niche was gamers. So they kind of wanted to expand their audience as well. And so we worked with them to really, like I said, expand their audience, get reach beyond gamers, just be seen as more of a cool app that people would want to download and engage with and use in their free time. So we ended up doing, I want to say, 4 TikTok influencer campaigns over the span of about 9 months. We specifically focused on the fashion niche because that's probably one of the largest communities on TikTok that has like really dedicated following. And yeah, we created seasonal campaigns, one for like summer, the summertime, the fall, Halloween, winter, because fashion is seasonal and the trends are always changing. So we thought that was a really great way to show off kind of like the versatility and flexibility of fashion on IMVU. So yeah, it was really creatively driven. We actually got really good metrics and numbers from it. I think over 700,000 impressions. So yeah.
And you guys have touched upon like the various services that you offer to your clients, like branding, social media management, Gen Z consulting, and influencer marketing. Is there one that you guys enjoy doing more? Celine, if you could start.
Yeah, I think, well, we like them all for different reasons, which is why we obviously offer them as services. I think the trajectory that 98 is hoping to go as a company would be to lean more into Gen Z consulting. I think everyone has a real passion for understanding and learning about this generation even more every day, and it like changes literally week by week. So I think that's really a big passion of all of ours, is be able to work with larger brands and bring Gen Z voices to them and actually create content that, you know, resonates and emulates what Gen Z is all about. So I think in that sense, it's all tied between the consulting then to the social media, because we want our research efforts to translate to content efforts, and then influencers is kind of a way to get brands out there right now. So just, it's all a mosh posh, but I would say Gen Z consulting is a really big focus and the launch pad for us. Personally, I love working on influencer projects. Sometimes it drives me crazy, but I think there's so much fun getting to work with, you know, creative people again and content creators, and yeah, like sharing, you know, we take on brands that we like to work with, and we hope that, you know, influencers do too. So I think that's really fun for us.
Overall, what continues to be your favorite part of working with 98? And let's start with you, Gia.
I guess like working with a like-minded team with a shared vision. Like I mentioned earlier, our team is always changing and evolving. And even 98 itself is always changing and evolving with Gen Z. And I feel like that is something that is so relevant and personal to me as a human being and as a Gen Zer myself. So I think just the mission of it, the relevancy of it, and how much of it evolves and changes with our generation.
On that note, like similarly to Gia, like the like-minded people is really important. And I think for me personally, I love working with interns. I'm just constantly amazed by like how much talent young people have. I sound so old when I say young people, but like just the like late teens, early 20s, like they are so talented. And I think like, you know, when we first started 98, like we said, people viewed us as kids and whatnot. And I think our interns especially, really prove to the world that you can be in college or you don't need to be in college and you can still have talent and the ability to work hard and produce good work. And so I personally really love working with interns and getting to collaborate and learn from them as well.
So before we end, we're gonna have some rapid fire questions. So the first question is, what is your favorite color?
Mine is periwinkle.
Mine's pink.
Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Stop worrying. It all works out.
I would say don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's kind of cynical, but I think that life just has so much to offer.
If you could have 3 people, dead or alive, for dinner guests, who would they be?
I would have, and this is such a weird mix, but it makes sense to me. First, I would have Gordon Ramsay as both the one cooking for us and at the dinner table for just like comedic relief. Then I would have Hugh Jackman because I'm literally obsessed with him. I think he's like the most talented man in Hollywood. And then I would have Taylor Swift because I'm also obsessed with her. I'm like Swiftie all the way and I memorize all of her songs, and I feel like we would just have deep conversations. So those are the 3 that I would have dinner with.
I think mine would be Derek Huff. He's the guy from Dancing with the Stars. I'm obsessed with him. My other one would be David Beckham. I've had a crush on him since I was a little girl. He's still my celebrity crush to this day. A third one, I was going to go deep. I was going to say I'll invite Gia.
Oh my God, I love that.
So I get 2 dinner parties. That's what I'm hearing. I love that.
So what is a song that you have on repeat currently?
I'm a music gal, but I'm not like a picky music gal. My go-to like playlist or album is always ABBA. That's kind of my first introduction to English as a language and just pop culture. So they hold a very, very special place in my heart.
Current song on repeat is Hush by the Marias, but it's the Still Woozy remix.
I love the Marias.
Same.
So good.
I know.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Like, I'm an avid storyteller. That's kind of just like what I feel like I was put on this earth to do. And I think everyone has stories to tell. It's just a matter of how you want to do it. For a long time, dance was that outlet. Writing has become that outlet. Even advertising in some capacity is a storytelling outlet. So I'm really passionate about just like the intersection of like life, culture, and just like the arts in general. So I think that would be what I want my legacy to be, just like like living life to the fullest, and then being able to tell stories till the rest of time, essentially, like never losing the touch of how to tell stories and memories and all of that.
There's this word in Greek called meraki. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's this phenomenon of kind of leaving a little piece of yourself in everything that you do. And I feel like that's something that I always try to embody, whether it's, school or being an entrepreneur and work, or even just hanging out with a friend. Like, I always want to give a little piece of myself in every community that I'm a part of, and any person that I meet, and in anything that I do. So yeah, just having that impact in whatever way that I can, in the communities that I can, and in the people that I interact with.
So what is a book that you have read recently or are currently reading that you would recommend?
I'm currently reading See No Stranger. It's a memoir by Valerie Carr. I probably butchered that name. Yeah, I'm in the middle of it, but it's basically about how we can come together, like as individuals and as a community at a time where the world is falling apart. So she talks about her experiences in the 9/11 world?
I'll share two, professional and personal book. Professionally, it's actually one of our clients' books who I feel like I've gotten like a really good bond with in terms of like his vision and values. The book is called Legacy in the Making, authored by Lucas Conley and Mark Miller, sorry. And literally the question you were talking about, Desiree, earlier, like it's all about building lasting legacies for brands and leaders. So it involves case studies from, some of the brands that have been around the longest or who've been able to shift and evolve with time. And I think it's a really good book for any young leader or any entrepreneur wannabe, and just like people in the brand and marketing space in general. It's the stories, the narration and the storytelling aspect of it makes it feel not like a textbook, which is nice. And then on the personal level, this is not a book that I read recently, but it's a book that I will always reference for the rest of my life. And it's called When Breath Becomes Air, by Paul Calanthe. I think that's his last name. Don't quote me though. But it's about a surgeon who like contemplates life and death. He's always the one operating, and suddenly he's on the table now and someone's operating on him. And it's just this juxtaposition between like, you're always the one who's saving the life, and all of a sudden like you got to trust someone else to do it. And it's almost a memoir. And it sounds so grim the way I just explained it, but I swear there's bits and bobs of light and just like makes you really, really think in it. And I love books that, make you pause and think about things, and like every sentence feels like a quote. So yeah, it's one that I hold dearly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Celine and Gia. We learned a lot about you. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to sit down with us and talk. Can you let everyone at home know about any upcoming projects and where they could connect with you?
Yeah, so upcoming projects wise, we're definitely moving towards working with companies in more of like the tech space, just as, Web3 and the metaverse become more relevant. And as Gen Z continues to grow the gaming industry, that's something that we're definitely looking more into. Did you want to add anything to that, Celine?
No, I think, we're pretty open to many different industries. I think this is one we are actively looking towards, but catch us working on many different things. And then in terms of where to connect with us, all our social media, our handle is 98, like type it out, the numbers, type it out, 98 LA. That'll, oh my God, 98, the letters. Yeah, so 98 LA. And also the Koi Pond, like Gia mentioned earlier, it's our growing network of Gen Zs. So if you are a 1996 baby all the way to 2012 baby, we want you to sign up, join the Koi Pond. We love talking to Gen Zs basically around the world. We have paid opportunities for focus groups, interviews, surveys, you name it. And the way to join, you can join through our website or any of our social platforms. We'll have a link to it. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And we are definitely rooting for you guys. It's amazing what you guys are doing. And as a Gen Zer, it's inspiring to see fellow Gen Zs doing amazing things. So yeah, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
You too. Okay,
You too.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.